environmental impact report. Items 12A, B, C, and D for case numbers 2014.0241E at 1021 Market Street, the CEQA findings, the X case for the determination of compliance, the CUA for conditional use authorization, and the zoning administrator will consider the variance at 1028 Market Street. Initially, the project sponsor had anticipated presenting their public art component for item 12E, but they are no longer prepared to do so. That was only an informational presentation, so it doesn't really affect what is before you today. Once you hear from staff and the project sponsor, you can open it up to public comment. At the conclusion of public comment, you will certify or consider certification of the final environmental impact report, and then, if you do so, the project itself. Commissioners, I apologize. I've just been informed that the project is now prepared to present their public art component, so I will also include item 12E for case number 2014.0241X at 1028 Market Street, their informational presentation.
Great. Thank you, Jonas. So we're ready for the staff presentation.
Good afternoon, President Hillis and Commissioners. Rachel Shutt, Planning Department staff. Also with me here today are Lisa Gibson, our Acting Environmental Review Officer, Joy Navarrete, Senior Environmental Planner, Tina Tam, the Senior Preservation Planner, and Marcel Boudreau, the Preservation Planner and current planner for this project. Members of the project sponsor team are also present. As the Commission Secretary has indicated, the item before you is the certification of a final environmental impact report for the 1028 Market Street project, Department case number 2014-0241E. The project site is located on the north side of Market Street, mid-block between Taylor and Jones. This is in the downtown Civic Center neighborhood. The proposed project would include the demolition of the existing commercial building and the construction of a 127-foot tall, 13-story building with up to 186 residential units over ground floor commercial, comprising 4 commercial tenant spaces. A copy of the draft EIR certification motion and the responses to comments document are before you. The draft EIR was published on September 21st, 2016. The public hearing on the draft EIR was held before the Planning Commission on October 27th, 2016. The public comment period closed on November 7th, 2016. And the responses to comments document was published and distributed on January 13th, 2017. The responses to comments document, in combination with the draft EIR that you received previously, constitute the final EIR. Now I'd like to provide you with a brief summary of the EIR findings. The project site is located within the Market Street Theater and Loft National Register Historic District and the eligible Tenderloin, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer, or LGBTQ Historic District. The existing 2-story commercial building, constructed in 1907, is considered to be a contributing structure to both districts. It should be noted, however, that the building is not individually eligible for listing and is not itself a historic architectural resource. This is detailed in the Historic Resource Evaluation Response, or HRER, for the project. The final EIR concluded that the proposed project would result in 2 project-level, significant unavoidable impacts to historic resources, both of them in relation to the Market Street Theater and Loft District. The first impact is related to the demolition of the existing contributing structure. This would have a substantial adverse effect on the significance of the Market Street Theater and Loft District. This is largely due to the fact that the district is small in size, the concentration of contributors is low, the project site is prominently located and centrally located within the district, and the demolition of the building would alter the high-low-high rhythm of the buildings within this small district. Please note that we've included added figures to the responses to comments document to illustrate the proposed project within the context of this historic district. I believe they start on page 15. And we've also provided a link to Historic Resources Evaluation, which includes several photographs as well. The second impact is related to the construction of the proposed project, which would also have a substantial adverse effect on the significance of the Market Street Theater and Loft District. This is because the replacement building would not be compatible with the rest of the district in terms of size, scale, and architectural features. Two mitigation measures are included. The first is Historic American Building Survey, or HABS documentation. The second is a permanent interpretive display documenting the original 1028 Market Street building and its relationship to the Market Street Theater and Loft District. However, even with the incorporation of mitigation, these impacts could not be reduced to a less than significant level. As a result, the Commission would need to adopt a statement of overriding considerations pursuant to the California Environmental Quality Act should the Commission choose to approve the project. Now, as I mentioned, both significant unavoidable impacts are related to the Market Street Theater and Loft District. As you'll recall, the existing building has also been identified as a contributor to the eligible Tenderloin LGBTQ district. However, the EIR concluded that the impacts related to the loss of this contributing building would have a less than significant impact on the Tenderloin LGBTQ district. This is largely due to the fact that the boundaries of this district are large, the period of significance is long, and the contributors are both diverse and numerous. Before I conclude, we did receive one additional comment on the EIR the day that we published the RTC document via email. This has been included with other letters that Marcel will provide to you. This letter did not raise issues within the scope of CEQA that had not already been addressed. At this time, I would like to note that we have endeavored to provide meaningful responses to the comments provided by the Planning Commission, the Historic Preservation Commission, and the members of the public. We believe, therefore, that the EIR is adequate and provides decision makers and the public with the information required pursuant to CEQA to understand the potential impacts of the proposed project. On this basis, we request that the Commission adopt the motion before you, which certifies the contents of the report are adequate and accurate, and that the procedures through which the final EIR was prepared comply with the provisions of CEQA, the CEQA guidelines, and Chapter 31 of the Administrative Code. This concludes my presentation on this matter, unless commissioners have any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Bujo.
Thank you, Commissioners. Marcel Boudreau, Department staff. As Rachel mentioned, I'm the current planner, so I'll just briefly go over the project approvals related to this project, in addition to that which Rachel referenced. Firstly, the adoption of CEQA findings, the approval of downtown project authorization under Section 309 of the Planning Code with exceptions for ground level wind currents, rear yard, off-street loading, and a curb cut on Golden Gate Avenue. Approval of conditional use authorization for exemption of on-site affordable units from floor area ratio calculations. In addition, an informational component of this project sponsor's presentation, there will be a public art component pursuant to Section 429 of the Planning Code. These are actually 11. Thanks. The sponsor has commissioned an artist to provide an on-site public art component, with the primary component affixed to its Market Street elevation and visible from Market Street. A brief overview has been provided in your executive summary, and the full public art proposal is included in the packets. The project sponsor will briefly discuss their selection for the public art during their presentation as well. Lastly, during this hearing, the zoning administrator will hear requests for variances for the projections over the public right-of-way for the public art, requirements of dwelling unit exposure, and an exception for the height of the elevator overrun. 6 additional letters have been submitted after packet publication in comment and in support of the project. I have provided Jonas copies for distribution, and there's some additional if any of the public is interested. I have 2 minor housekeeping items. First, on January 19th, a modified draft motion for the adoption of CEQA findings was submitted for your review and published online. These modifications better reflect conformance with this standard document, however, do not introduce any new information into the record. This revised draft motion with the changes accepted was resubmitted again today along with the environmental planner's draft motion for EIR certification. Second, at this time, I need to read a minor correction into the record, which applies to the draft motion to adopt CEQA findings, the draft motion for downtown project authorization, and draft motion for conditional use authorization. In the preamble section documenting the environmental process for this particular project, The response to comments date will be corrected with a publication date of January 13th, 2017 in all three of these final motions. In conclusion, the project will add 186 new dwelling units for rent to the city's housing stock, and the sponsor has indicated to staff that the project's inclusionary housing requirement would be satisfied by providing 13.5% of these units as on-site affordable, which is 25 units. And further, the sponsor has indicated these would be rental units. A copy of the Costa-Hawkins agreement has been included in your case packets. The staff finds that the project is on balance consistent with objectives and policies of the general plan and complies with applicable requirements of the planning code. And based on these findings and those outlined in the case report, the department recommends support of this project. This concludes my presentation. I'm going to turn it over to the sponsor team, the developer and SCB architects who will provide more detail on this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Boudreau. Project sponsor, you have 10 minutes.
Those persons standing in front of the doorway can find a seat, please. Causing a fire hazard. You can't stand in front of the doorway. In fact, people who are standing in the room should find a seat.
Could someone please project the
Once you
presentation?
start speaking, SFGov TV will go to the computer.
Good afternoon, Commissioners, and thank you for the opportunity to present here today. My name is Ross Stackhouse. I'm the project manager for 1028 Market Street, and I'm here today on behalf of project sponsors Tidewater Capital and Warhorse. I'm about to spend the next 6 minutes describing the last 4 years of my life, so I appreciate your bearing with my speaking quickly. You're probably familiar with our project site. It's on the north side of Market Street between Taylor and Jones. And what we've always found most compelling about this location is that it sits at the nexus of the burgeoning mid-market corridor and the historic Tenderloin neighborhood. That intersection of bridging old and new, of honoring tradition while envisioning the future, is something that we've always found to be an important theme of the project. We first acquired the vacant and blighted site you see here in May of 2013. The facade was adorned with the signage of former uses like a billiards hall and strip club. The interior was filled with rats, needles, and almost a decade of grime. And the sidewalk outside was a stretch of Market Street that people from and around the neighborhood tried to avoid if they could in general. So our team set out to do two things initially. The first was to get to know people in the area so we could hear their stories, learn its history, and find out what they hoped its future would look like. And the second was to figure out what would be feasible to build here and reconcile that with what we were hearing from the community. That was how we first developed the concept we're here to present today, a rental apartment building with on-site below-market rate units and ground floor retail. The combination of dense, mixed-income housing to address the city's shortage and neighborhood-serving retail to increase vitality and safety in the area was something people generally agreed would be a welcome addition to the block. Overall, the project is 186 units with a mix of studio, 1, 2, and 3-bedroom apartments, including 25 on-site BMRs. The ground floor includes 9,000 square feet of retail facing onto both Market Street and Golden Gate Avenue, and we have parking for 42 cars and 143 bicycles across the basement and first floor. In our initial discovery phase, we also learned about San Francisco's entitlement timelines. All in all, it has taken us 3 years from our first application to get here, and if we're approved today, it will take another 2.5 years before we break ground. So we took, before the building opens. So we took it upon ourselves to treat that amount of runway we had as an opportunity to approach the development process differently. The first thing we did differently was open a restaurant, but not just any old restaurant, a food hall with 6 small businesses, outdoor seating, and a beer and wine bar. We called it The Hall and spent 8 wild months designing, permitting, and building it with incredible collaboration from the city and the local community. We then used the hall as the headquarters for our community engagement effort for the larger project. By hosting meetings, fundraisers, happy hours, and live performances out of the space over its 2+ years of operation, we've built strong relationships with a wide array of neighborhood stakeholders and gotten feedback on every aspect of the building, from its ground floor retail to its public art and even its architecture. The hall has been a gratifying project to be a part of, and it's had a remarkable impact unto itself. We served as a small business incubator, helping 11 food truck restaurateurs test out brick-and-mortar concepts, and we're proud to say that 2 of our current vendors plan to open their own restaurants after we close the space. We've also enlivened the block with food and entertainment, serving over 300,000 customers during the past 28 months, which has had a radical impact on the safety and vitality of this stretch of market. And lastly, we've invested in the community by contributing over $1 million between the net cost to build the hall and the direct and in-kind contributions we've made to local organizations while operating it. Here are just a few of the local nonprofits we've supported. Given that the Tenderloin is the highest concentration of families of any neighborhood in the city, I'd like to highlight several of the youth and family-serving organizations we've been able to assist, including Larkin Street Youth, Code Tenderloin, United Playas, the Hamilton Family Center, and Youth Art Exchange. The hall has also served as a community engagement forum for the larger development. We've hosted monthly community project update breakfasts with over 350 attendees and had almost 300 meetings with groups and individuals on top of that. We've also held 3 jobs fairs with 30 companies and 325 job seekers serving youth and people trying to break the cycle of incarceration. In total, we've garnered nearly 150 letters of support from a wide array of stakeholders. Here's some highlight photos of the events we've hosted, including our monthly project update breakfasts, nonprofit happy hours, our holiday toy giveaway, and public input forums on the building design and programming. Supporters of the project include individuals, nonprofit agencies, unions, resident groups, local businesses, and arts organizations. We've collected 139 letters of support thus far, and listed here are some of the people and groups who will be here today to speak on behalf of the project. For our public art selection, we held an open RFQ and received 133 submissions from all over the world. A panel of local arts professionals pared that down to 8 finalists for the RFP stage, and we held public voting on those 8 finalists. The winner received the most public support and showed an earnest commitment to community engagement like our own. Here's a rendering of the piece, which is called Infinite Reflections by artist Sanaz Mazanani, a local Bay Area artist. And lastly, I want to highlight some of the public benefits that come with the project, including over 200 jobs, 25 on-site below-market rate housing units, and almost $20 million of public investment over the next 10 years. The community feedback we've gotten has been instrumental in crafting this package of benefits. We've heard consistently how powerful the hall's ethos of inclusiveness and engagement has been, and we're eager to carry that forward by partnering with Market Street for the Masses to preserve affordable housing and neighborhood-serving retail in the Tenderloin. We've also heard how the issue of public safety bridges across different stakeholders, and we're committed to fostering a secure and active public realm on both Market Street and Golden Gate Avenue. Lastly, we are excited to honor the rich and diverse history of the neighborhood by developing interpretive programs that will honor the surrounding theater and loft and LGBTQ historic districts, relying on the same public input methods that gave us our public art piece. With that, I'd like to turn it over to Senior Project Architect Strachan Forgan.
Commissioners, as we approach the architectural design, we spent a lot of time as a team walking on Market Street, observing the strong character of the buildings around there. What you see on the slide here is the Golden Gate Theatre, which is just a couple of doors down, and it exhibits the strong base, middle, and top, strong vertical elements which are key to the historic theatre district, and strong corner treatments with a cupola in this case. Context also gave us some clues to the materiality and color. Though the building is set back from the corner, given the protected nature of the historic building next door and the transference of its development rights, we knew that the lot line, in this case, would be a highly visible facade, and in essence, the building would act as a corner building due to its height. The building mass is split into 2 parts, an outer shell that directly relates to the ordered punched masonry expression of Market Street and creates a base middle that relates to the proportions and dated levels of the surrounding context. A setback crystalline element creates a top, whilst also revealed at the corner to create a strong vertical element that marks the residential entrance. Overall, the interlocking of these 2 forms creates a more varied and interest mass that mitigates the scale of the project and also provides well-proportioned elevations. The 2 pieces are treated with different materials to further strengthen the composition. The interlocking of these 2 pieces provides a nice 3-dimensionality as you observe the building from various viewpoints around the intersection on Market and on Golden Gate. Finally, I'd like to go through the floor plans. We have a 1 basement level, which provides, we think, an appropriately minimal amount of storage parking in this transit-rich, centrally located site. The basement also contains bicycle parking and building mechanical spaces. At the ground floor, we have a series of retail spaces that activate both Market Street and the Golden Gate Street Avenue. And residents can enter the building from lobbies on either side of the building. The typical residential levels above also contain a gymnasium with an associated outdoor terrace with views onto Market Street. The upper 2 floors are set back, and those units are afforded generous terrace spaces. And finally, the rooftop provides a large outdoor garden amenity with panoramic views.
That's good. That's the end of the presentation. Okay, thank you. So with that, we will open it up for public comment on items 11 and 12A through D or E. I've got a number of speaker cards. If I call your name, feel free to line up against the screen side of the room and speak in any order. Cameron Moberg, Corey Smith, Mike Anderer, Del Seymour, Charlie Rimkus, Adrian Seamy, Zach Sharp, Ben Davis, and Randy Shaw.
And I'll remind those persons again standing in front of the doorway, you're causing a fire hazard. You cannot stand there. Please find a seat or line up on the screen side of the room to submit your public testimony.
All right, first speaker, please.
Good afternoon. Commissioners, my name is Mike Anderer from Demariak Academy, and I am here speaking as the co-chair of the Market Street for the Masses Coalition. And I am very pleased to tell you that the Market Street for the Masses Coalition has come to an agreement with Tidewater Capital and Warhorse on a community benefit agreement that I think represents a new collaboration for the sake of affordable housing in the Tenderloin. It is the formation of a partnership to explore models and develop a program that will identify and secure and preserve permanently affordable housing with neighborhood serving retail in the Tenderloin. I just want to, there are other people who will comment about the agreement. I want to read to you some text from the agreement to show you the kind of partnership and understanding that this is. The project sponsor, this is from the agreement, the project sponsor acknowledges that displacement is a key concern of the coalition. Displacement can be caused not only by the construction of a lower percentage of affordable housing than that which currently exists in a neighborhood, but also by changes to a neighborhood's income and demographic profile, which can cause psychological and social displacement for existing residents, businesses, and nonprofit organizations. Further, the project sponsor recognizes that certain actions by new entrants to the neighborhood could negatively impact some or all of the existing residents, businesses, and nonprofits that have been part of this community for many years. The project sponsor acknowledges the coalition's primary goal is to increase the number of permanently affordable housing units with neighborhoods serving ground floor retail uses in the Tenderloin. Further, the coalition is interested in advancing an initiative around a site acquisition model. The need for such an acquisition program is especially important in light of the historical significance of the Tenderloin as a diverse neighborhood of marginalized people. Residents of the Tenderloin have led the way in social justice movements, especially the trans women and gay men who stood up for their rights at Compton's cafeteria in 1966. And the Tenderloin has been a haven for creativity and artists for generations, notably musicians at places like the Hyde Street Studios and Black Hawk Nightclub. Given the historical significance of the area, the acquisition program shall include within its mission the goal of increasing, through both preservation and creation permanently affordable housing with neighborhoods serving ground floor retail uses for historically marginalized communities with rich histories of activity in the Tenderloin, including no and low-income residents, families, people of color, and the local LGBTQ community. I am happy to inform you that the Market Street for the Masses Coalition supports this project.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Hello, Commissioners. Very excited to be in your house today again. I'm a 32-year Tenderloin resident. I kind of love my neighborhood. You know, it's been a long time coming for us to get more dignity in our neighborhood. This is a project I see revitalizing two neighborhoods. There are two neighborhoods involved in this project, which is very unique. That's the Market Street corridor and the Golden Gate corridor. Both have been fairly neglected on that block. I've seen that block go through a lot of changes. I run a historical tour in the Tenderloin and Mid-Market, and ironically, I run it out of 1028 Market, and we'll run it out of the new 1028 Market after you approve it here today. So it's going to be something that we've been looking for a long time. We need that chrome and glass in the Tenderloin. We're tired of being Skid Row. We're tired of being Skid Row. I know we look bad sometimes, we smell bad sometimes, but we need to come up. We need to step our game up. And this is the way we can. I've talked to the guys that are running this, the developers, the contractors, and man, I have nothing but good to say about them. I've researched some of their other projects. They've done some wonderful things. We need a project like this bad. You know, it'll be more jobs for our neighborhood. With those 25%, those 25 affordable housings will be so sorely needed. I also chair the homeless board downstairs in City Hall. And believe me, housing is one of my number one things. This could solve so many problems and make our neighborhood look a lot better. So I'm asking you today to consider this program to the utmost. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Next speaker, please, Mr. Shaw.
Thank you, Commissioners. Randy Shaw, Director of the Tenderloin Housing Clinic. Some of you know this is the third major project on the same row. 1066 Market, the Shorenstein project, which got unfortunately delayed. The Joyal project, the Group I project, which also was delayed, but I think is going to be resolved and soon started. And this is the third one. And this is a vital project. That side of Golden Gate is such a problem. Having that parking lot, it's just at the wrong location. And what we have with these three developers, Shorenstein, Joy, and Craig Young of Tidewater and his partner, Scott Plank, is people who really care about this neighborhood. And I think that's what has been, sometimes developers come in, they just want to get their project entitled and sell it, or they want to just build something and sell it. These folks all have a real commitment long-term to the Tenderloin. So they're, as a prior speaker said, they've already made commitments to historic tours. All three are ingrained in the neighborhood. And that's why this is a really special project. And I don't think you'll even find anyone opposing this project, which is a rare situation when you deal with development in this city. There's always somebody who opposes nonprofit projects. So this is something you should all be proud of. It's the last one in the sequence, and hopefully by the end of the year, all three will have broken ground. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw. Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Seamus Canning, and I am the Principal of Canning Electric and the CEO of P3 Construction Remodeling. I have known Tidewater team since they bought the 1028 Market Street in 2013. I support the 1028 Market Street development. I have worked on numerous construction projects in the mid-market area and observed the unique way in which Tidewater is approaching the 1028 Market Street development project. First, they created the hall as an intern use, whereas most developers would just let an old vacant building fall in on itself. The hall has become a favourite community gathering place and also created over 30 jobs for the local community. 1028 Market will create over 200 new jobs during its construction phase. Good paying jobs that folks in the trades really need. I support the 1028 Market Street project. I believe the development will be good for the neighbourhood. The city badly needs more housing. And the 1028 Market Street project will provide 186 new units, including 25 on-site BMRs, along with renewed retail, which will enliven the neighbourhood. Thank you for your time. I urge you to support the 1028 Market project. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Charlie Remkus. I work at Jones Lang LaSalle here in the city. I'm going to frame my support through a short anecdote about Tidewater and Craig and the essence they bring to the neighborhood. I was introduced to Craig Young last year through a mutual friend. He explained to me Craig's passion for the community and said he was someone that I had to meet. A couple weeks later, met at his office just blocks around the corner from the project. And what I saw in those 2 blocks was really the essence behind what is currently at the hall and what will be at 1028 Market Street. During that walk, we were stopped by 3 people, all of who knew Craig on a first-name basis and vice versa. They welcomed him with open arms. They asked him how he was doing. It was a true community setting. They weren't real estate executives. They were fellow citizens of the Tenderloin. It's a little bit rare to have a developer welcomed with such open arms on your own street sometimes. And when we got to the hall, I really saw why they welcomed him like that. The word that I used to describe the situation was it was buzzing. It was the middle of the week, middle of the day, not much going on, but the environment in there was ecstatic. There was music playing, people meeting over coffee, people interacting with the vendors. It was clear the organic community, jobs, and opportunity that the space had created for the community. And it's my opinion that after seeing the proposal, meeting Craig, meeting his team, that the proposed project will provide continued and enhanced support for the community through job creation, much needed below market housing, further engaged retail, and neighborhood and artist support. Combine that with the sponsor's passion, vision, and clear commitment to civic duty, I think it's a win for all sides. So I strongly urge you to support 1028 Market Street. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Remkus. Next speaker, please.
Hi, my name is Cameron Moberg. I'm a longtime resident and local artist in the area, community activist working with the community alongside City Crossroads with a lot of the families that live in the SROs and things like that. When I was 15, I started to go down to a rec center in the Soma. And then shortly after, as I grew up, I actually moved into the neighborhood and lived there for 17 years. So I've seen it change over the years. I've seen my share of people come in and out. Back in the day, people would move in smaller amounts of people, and they would learn to integrate into the culture. In recent times, it's proven to be different. With just the mass amount of tech and developers coming into the area, it seemed to shift. It seemed to be the opposite, like the mass amounts of people were setting a new culture. But for me, this wasn't the case with Tidewater. They have been very intentional about integrating into the existing culture and enhancing it with things like the hall. They came in, they saw what the people were doing and what they needed, and they provided a place for small startup restaurants, a place for the arts, and a place to provide jobs. These things have always been in the DNA of San Francisco. They allowed me to raise funds for City Crossroads. I was able to curate art and music events in their space, and they even donated a lot of the proceeds back into the community to City Crossroads. They opened their space for job fairs for youth. They have provided free dinners for our kids, times for them to come in and visit the space and hang out. I love the people in the Tenderloin, and I love the people in the 6th Street corridor, and they are often overlooked and misunderstood. Tidewater has not overlooked them, and they sought to understand us and our culture. They gave chances for neighborhood folks to have jobs. 6 and Market has dramatically changed for the better. Trust me, I've been on the block for a long time, and it's the first time in a long time there's been sustainable business and jobs that could really make an impact and change the way the neighborhood looks. So I appreciate and support Tidewater and the building project at 1028 Market, and I hope you can do the same. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon again, Commissioners. Corey Smith on behalf of the San Francisco Housing Action Coalition. Since I started this about a year ago, I've probably spent more time on this project than any of the other projects that I've been involved with. That's mainly because, as previously mentioned, they did hold monthly community meetings Wednesday mornings to make sure that they were hearing from the neighbors, and I think we absolutely really need to commend them on that. Additionally, our organization hosted multiple happy hours there. They were always very, very generous. And I think just the overall project sponsors' attitude towards how to work with the community has really, really been impressive. I know they asked a lot of questions of us and of other people that are more involved in this world from the very get-go to make sure that they were doing things the right way. As far as the project itself, I think the food court is really an indication of how they view ground floor retail. And just to echo Mr. Seymour and Mr. Shaw's comments earlier, they're really, really cognizant that what is facing Market Street is very different than what is facing Golden Gate. And I distinctly remember the community meetings that we've had around ground floor retail, and they were asking people, what type of services do you want to see? And they were really specific on locations because they wanted to make sure that the people that were going to be interacting on that street felt as if it was part of their neighborhood. And those attention to details are not something that is super common, but is really, really valuable. And I absolutely think that Because of what they've done to this point, we have every belief that they will continue to do that going forward. The parking is absolutely appropriate for the area. It is going to be a major transit hub, and we will always do what we can to encourage less parking, more bike parking in the area. They are meeting the inclusionary requirements based on June's Prop C trailing legislation, although we would like to encourage sponsor to look at the inclusionary dial to see if we can get more BMRs on site. I get a warm, fluttery feeling every time I see all these fine men and women in vests behind me, so we know this is going to be built by people that are being paid good living wages. And just to bring it right back, I mean, it's the community input. You don't get this many people to show up to these hearings in the middle of the day unless they've done right by the community. So all in all, we absolutely support this project without any hesitation and ask you to approve it unanimously today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon, President Hillis and commissioners. My name is Adrian Simi, field representative for Carpenters Local 22. And behind me in the back of the room here, we've got about 25 members of our Carpenters in Action that are here in full support of this project. It's through Tidewater and their choice of general contractor, Nibby Brothers, that we have a long relationship with in San Francisco. It's going to be 100% union job, providing over 200 good paying union jobs to workers in San Francisco. Remember, these are temporary jobs. Construction is temporary. We move from one job to the next, so it's not like it's permanent. There will be permanent jobs on there, but for us, we need to keep this going. And this is one project that's just part of that we stand behind. It's 186 units of residential. We know that San Francisco can use that. The below market rate, we can use that too, and we're looking forward to going to work here and hope that you will approve this project, and we thank you today.
Thank you, Mr. Simi. Next speaker, please.
Hi there, my name is Ben Davis. I'm the founder and CEO of Illuminate. That's the nonprofit arts organization that brought you the Bay Lights, and that our next project we're working on with the help of some folks in this room and certainly in this building and the community behind me is a 2-mile-long art installation on Market Street called Light Rail. We've been fortunate enough to be able, through the generosity of Craig and his team, to make 1028 our de facto headquarters for that project. And I think this project makes sense on all the obvious reasons. It makes sense in terms of housing in our city and along a transit corridor. I think it's a beautiful expression, a thoughtful expression. But Illuminate's mission is to rally large groups of people together to create impossible works of art that, through awe, frees humanity's better nature. And it's on that topic of humanity's better nature that I just want to comment, not on this building, and I hope it stands on its own, but really the gentlemen behind me who are not making a promise as developers of showing their better nature once this project goes forward, but have demonstrated a track record of unleashing that better nature upon our community and activating that community with them. Their 3-year track record is incredibly impressive. I've been directly affected by it, and the community that we're working on through Illuminate is a beneficiary of it. And I just think that sort of clear dedication to not just having a concern about the texture of your building, but really the fabric and strength of the community that live outside the doors of that community can't be overstressed in terms of the folks we want to say yes to when we agree about every other value of their projects. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. We'll call some other additional speakers too. Axel Boren, Rob Poole, Karen Frost, Alvin Padilla, David Seward, Seamus Canning. Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Zach Sharp, and I'm with the Alabama Bowties Bluegrass Band, and I think I think I can kind of represent the bluegrass community as a whole in San Francisco, and by saying that we definitely support this project. The bluegrass community is a very vibrant one here in the Bay Area, but there are very few places that support it, and the hall, which is the temporary site that Tidewater's set up, has been a real hub for these musicians and for these people. In addition, 6 years ago, I went back to school for sustainable business, and I learned that business is more than just money. It's the people, the community, and also the environment. And I think having gone to that school in San Francisco, the market corridor has been a long, running issue and problem that people are trying to address. And so, watching this project come to life, the hall particularly has really kind of been the perfect case study to how to approach a development project with people in mind, the community in mind. So I strongly urge you to support the project, and thanks for your time.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Jacob Shea. I'm with Structure Capital. We invest into local companies, and I'm here to support the 1028 Market Street project. I support Craig and Scott and what they've done. I have friends that live in Baltimore, and I've seen their success in Baltimore, and I really appreciate what they've done. I live on 8th and Howard for about 6 years now, and I walk through the area every day to FIDI, and I spend about once a week in the hall with meetings, coffee, dinner, and just inviting friends over. And what they've done in the last several years has been amazing, and we need more of this. And I just support the 228 Market Street project and really want to be behind it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Hello, my name is David Seward. I'm with Hastings College of Law, University of California. We support this project. It will help activate the community. We have 1,000 students, faculty, and staff. And over time, that cohort of people, those individuals, have had far more opportunities to engage and interact with the neighborhood. And I want to compound Ben Davis's comments. The Tidewater crew has been integrating with the neighborhood for 3 or 4 years and have proven their good intentions by actions. I serve on community boards with Russ of the organization. They are committed to the community. This is about building a community, not just about building a building. And we support it very much. It will help activate that stretch of market, which is still a work in progress, and this project needs to go forward and go forward quickly. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Seward. Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Elvin Padilla. First of all, thank you very much for your service. I'm here to speak on behalf of the project. I live 83 McAllister, about a block and a half away. I've lived there for 7 years now. I've done a lot of community advocacy work in the Tenderloin, primarily with neighborhood youth and arts nonprofit organizations. I met Mr. Young, Craig Young, project sponsor, shortly after he arrived in San Francisco. He's always been totally welcoming and very gracious and generous in all my frequent endless requests to introduce him to neighborhood arts groups in particular. The answer was always yes. So I wanted to thank him for that publicly now. Also have appreciated very much the presence of the hall. In a previous life before the arts, I did a lot of work in community food security and community farmers markets. And there's a very powerful dynamic insofar as food, markets, and encouraging socioeconomic engagement and activity among peoples that otherwise would not engage with each other. And I'd like to give a shout out to Ilana Lipset, she's somewhere in this room, for a couple of years now of just dynamic programming, bringing all kinds of folks from the neighborhood together. Lastly, I'd like to also express support for the income diversification that this project will bring. I think there are often voices of fear about newcomers arriving, but one of the remarkable things about the Tenderloin is that the housing stock is overwhelmingly protected. So we have a remarkable opportunity here to move forward with income diversification without the common threat of displacement. And by the way, literature is everywhere in terms of the benefits for poor folks when they live in mixed income communities. This project will help move the Tenderloin to a more mixed income community. If you'd like to see the literature yourself, you can go to the websites of any big public health foundation or Housing Urban Development. Though the Housing Urban Development, you may want to visit the website now because it might be deleted by tomorrow. Anything that has to do with the welfare of people, better jump on the website now because it may be gone tomorrow. So very much support the project. Thank you all for your service, and thank you, Craig and Ilana.
Thank you, Mr. Padilla. Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Saeed Nusayba, and these are unplanned comments. I was here for another item. I worked for many years at the Jones Street Mosque on a public mural that faces towards Market. And I just am not unfamiliar with this project. I want to put a voice in for a marginalized community. That's the Muslim community that worships in that adjacent building. I'm a little concerned that, personally, that mural will be occluded. And in all the talk of community, I'm not hearing that religious community mentioned, even though people are coming there 5 times a day. So I would just ask you, because not aware of this, I haven't talked to the members of that congregation about their feelings about this project, but I'm alarmed that their voice and their participation in that community is not being heard. And I'm very grateful that there's an investment effort in the area. Rejuvenation is vital, but I would like to know how inclusive that sense of community will actually be. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Axel Bourne. I'm a project executive with Nibby Brothers General Contractors. My company was fortunate enough to have been selected as the builder for 1028 Market Street project, and we very much look forward to our partnership with Warhorse, Tidewater Capital, Olympic Residential Group, and SCB Architects. I'm here to show my support for the 1028 Market Street project. I believe this development will be good for the neighborhood. The city desperately needs more housing, and the 1028 Market Street project will provide 186 new units, including 25 below market rate units, along with new retail, which will enliven the neighborhood. Through their creation of the site's interim use, the Hall, Tidewater has shown its deep commitment to the Central Market and Tenderloin, and I know they will continue to develop in a way that benefits the whole community. The 1028 Market Street project will create economic opportunity across many sectors. During construction, the project will create over 200 jobs hired through Nibby Brothers, a union signatory general contractor. And we thank you guys for your support today. We also work closely with CityBuild to ensure employment opportunities are provided to San Francisco residents who are in the trades. Additionally, Nibby prides itself on working collaboratively with OCII, CMD, to provide opportunities to small businesses and San Francisco businesses, and this project will be no different. In the city where the cost of living has soared, creating over 200 well-paid jobs will be significant for those in the trades. Once the building is complete, there will be 5 new permanent positions required to operate it, and the ground floor retail will also create about 20 new permanent jobs. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I urge you to support the 1028 Market Street project.
Thank you, Mr. Boren. Please.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Karen Frost with Larkin Street Youth Services. I am the CFO, so I'm usually quarantined to my office and not let out, so pardon me for my nerves. I support 1028 both by being in Larkin Street Youth Services and our participation in Market Street for the Masses, so there's 2 folds there. Larkin Street has worked closely with Tidewater and the team in the Hall for the past few years. The Hall has hosted our youth and has made it admirable effort to engage on issues. They're also talking with us about the potential of training and making sure that not only the teaching our youth to be how to be workers as well, so that we are enabling our youth to have sustainable jobs. And with Market Street for the Masses, as Mike had alluded to earlier, that we're looking forward to working with them on creating a new structure for the organization and for the Tenderloin to have ownership in there and to move forward on that. Thank you, and I support 1020.
Thank you, Ms. Frost. And we'll call some additional names: John Butler, Brenda Juarez, Lowell Calder, Hunter Franks, Paul Pendergast, and Neil Shaw. Mr. Poole.
Hey, good afternoon, Commissioners. Rob Poole here. I'm just speaking on behalf of myself, and I would not normally do this for a project that Hackett's been involved with, but the Hall holds a special place in my heart. So I've been going there since day one. I was so stoked when I heard that this idea was coming, and I like to think I'm their first regular. I've had dinner with both my parents there. I've had dinner with, hung out with friends there. I got to speak at one of their monthly breakfasts. I listened to a talk on universal basic income. heard great jazz there, and I never stopped going. And even when the Peruvian chicken place went away, I still kept going. So, but I think more importantly, this was a really risky but innovative concept. I mean, you would not see this hardly. I don't think you see this very often anywhere in the country, probably. But this place has been such a great platform for bringing people together who probably would have not interacted otherwise. And it's been a venue for nonprofits to showcase the great work they do. It's made people more aware of other initiatives taking place in the city. The jobs fairs that they've held there were fantastic. And, that's a testament to the ladies and gentlemen with the Tidewater SCB in Alana with those teams. And if they didn't have to do any of this, but if they spent that much time to do a voluntary effort to integrate this site with the community, I think you can have a lot of faith that they're going to deliver a terrific project. And let's back to the basics here. 186 homes along the most robust transit line on the West Coast, across the street from major employers. Like, that's basic good land use 101. So, I'm going to miss the hall. I hope they find a new location, but I'm really excited for the potential that these new homes will bring. And I think it'll be great to have Tidewater as a neighbor there in a new capacity. And I really hope you support it today. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Poole. Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon. My name is John Butler. I'm the new executive director of the Tenderloin Economic Development Project. We're focused on equitable development throughout the Tenderloin. I'm a newcomer to the scene. I've been in this job for 2 weeks, but every day I have run by this location for the past 4 years. I've watched it every hour of the day, and the reason that I took this job is because every day I run through the Tenderloin and I wondered what I could do to help. In the last 2 weeks, I've spoken with a wide variety of community leaders from Del Seymour to St. Francis Foundation to people at Hastings Law School and some of you. And every road has led to a discussion about this project being a model for sustainable development, a model for economic diversification, and a model for community engagement. So as Executive Director of a Tenderloin Economic Development Project, I'd like to support this project wholeheartedly, and also to mention that in the last 2 weeks, I've just been discovering this project. Every single person has spoken very, very positively to it, and I think I'd like to echo the comments that were made at the beginning of this, that there does not seem to be meaningful opposition to it, and I think that's significant in this area. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Lowell Calder. I'm the owner of a small business in the Tenderloin. I've lived and worked in the Tenderloin for about 6 years. I've known the Tidewater team socially for about 3 years because I spent a lot of time at the hall. I've known them most recently because they're my landlords. I recently moved into one of their other buildings that's on the block, and I would just like to speak to their skill as retail, as they kind of review and select retail tenants. I know that they said no to other people who were looking at the space. My business is a dental office, which is a much-needed service in the Tenderloin. The nearest dental office is in the financial district. And so I think they did a really good job of kind of finding it, really sensing the needs of the neighborhood and bringing in the retail tenants that the neighborhood needs. I think they'll do the same thing for the new building, and as a business owner, I'm just excited about what else they'll do. I think they'll be excellent stewards of the block, and I wholeheartedly support 1028, and I hope you guys do too. Thanks.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
It's Brenda Juarez, and I'm one of the tenants at the hall. And we support this new building. We've been there for 2.5 years. And we've created 7 jobs now throughout the hall. And now we are just hoping to, or first, support them on what they're doing. My mother couldn't come, but she sends a lot of support to them. And my mother's part of La Cocina, and they give us a great opportunity to start our first storefront. and that just puts us in a position more ahead than another business like us. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Juarez.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Paul Pendergast. I actually have the honor of serving as the Director of Public Policy for the Golden Gate Business Association, which is the nation's first LGBT Chamber of Commerce, and I also get to serve as the President of the San Francisco Small Business Network, which represents 12 different business organizations in the city. I was really heartened to hear the staff talk about the historic nature of LGBT businesses in the community to this district, and I want to underscore that we continue, from our community's perspective, to make history when Equator Coffees, which is just 1 block away from the 1028 property, became the nation's first LGBT business in the country to be named the nation's Small Business of the Year. Equator has worked with the 1028 folks. They're providing jobs. They're providing opportunities for resources. When you talk to all the small businesses who are really pioneers in that mid-market period, these are businesses who are fighting every day to make bank in order to pay the rent and so forth. These are not the large businesses. These are the small businesses who are creating jobs for the people in the neighborhood. When I hear Del Richards talk about the importance of community and small business, when I see how he has worked with the people with 1028, this is music to my ears. And when the San Francisco Council of District Merchants and other organizations are coming to the hall to use that as a model, that's when we have a success story. So this is really a potential small business success story in the making. So thank you very much, and I heartily express my support for this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pendergrass. Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Hunter Franks. I'm a community-based artist. I've worked in the Central Market neighborhood for about 4 years now. Tidewater assisted me in carrying out several temporary public art projects on 6th and Market that engaged people and encouraged connection between folks walking by. In a city where the cost of living has continued to soar, Tidewater has shown their deep commitment to the creation of more housing, as well as community engagement and radical openness and empathy. Just one example of this is instead of calling the police and trying to get rid of the drug dealers that often hang out in front of the building there, they decided to partner with the police and put on a job fair for those very folks. I think that they've shown their true heart and love for this community, and that will continue with the 1028 development. I urge you to support this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Danny Campbell. I'm a representative with the Sheet Metal Workers, Local Union 104, and as well as a delegate to the San Francisco Building and Construction Trades Council. I'll keep it brief. We wholeheartedly support this project. I heard somebody say that it's a model project for sustainability. I couldn't agree more. When you have housing close to transit, and when you have below market rate housing on site, that's a win for the city. And when you have a developer like Craig Young here in Tidewater commit to the local union construction community that the workers building this project will be making good middle-class wages with health care and retirement benefits, means that our members still have a chance to live in this city and hold on to the American dream, the middle-class dream. So we look for your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell. I'll call some more names. John Schwark, Richard Perry, Javier Flores, Laura Clark, Sonia Traus, Scott Feeney. That's all. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Curtis Bradford, and I'm the president of the East Tenderloin Community Residents Association and also the Tenderloin People's Congress, and a long-term resident of the Tenderloin. I live at 230 Eddy Street, just a couple blocks from the project. So I'm here today to speak in support of the project for several reasons. One, I think they've shown an outstanding level of commitment to trying to engage with the community, to become a integrated member of the neighborhood and the community. Often developers seem to take the attitude of actually trying to dominate the neighborhood or take away or displace the neighborhood in order to impose their vision. These people have actually made an attempt, a real attempt, I think, a real effort to actually engage with and become a member and participate as a neighbor in the community. And I think that's pretty exemplary and kind of rare, and I would think they should be rewarded for that. And they've actually shown a real commitment to the idea of continuing that relationship moving forward long term. Like in terms of the helping us with one of the Tenderloin's visions of creating an acquisition fund and working with us on creating that and providing their expertise and talent and helping us move that forward. I think is a tremendous asset. And I think that there's a real potential there, a commitment to having small-based retail serving on both Golden Gate and Market Street side. I just think that there's a real benefit here for having a long-term working relationship in the neighborhood as actually a participant, a real part of the community. And so I look forward with continuing to work with them, and I hope that you will approve this project, Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, Ms. Sonner, please.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm so sorry, everybody. I didn't mean to cut in line. I didn't realize that I was doing that, so I apologize. My name is Lisa Zonner. I'm the Executive Director of Urban Solutions. Normally, I'm not such a scofflaw. I am here today to express our support of the 1028 Market Street project and Tidewater in particular. Over the last 3 years, I've worked very, very closely with Craig and Ross to emphasize to them the importance of maintaining ground floor retail space in the mid-market area. And not only enormous ground floor retail space, but regular size, small business size ground floor retail space. And Craig and Ross have made a commitment to supporting our small businesses here in San Francisco, which are the lifeblood of our economy and which adds so much richness to our neighborhood. I strongly urge you to support this project because we really believe that it's going in the right direction and it's really going to improve our neighborhood and our small businesses. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hello, Commissioners. My name is Honey Mahogany, and I'm here representing the Comptons District. We, as the Comptons Coalition, are trying to establish a transgender-friendly and affirming district in the Tenderloin. As many of you know, the Tenderloin is one of the last places with affordable housing and also one of the last places in the city that is safe for transgender women, specifically transgender women of color. We've had several conversations with Craig. He's been absolutely charming and wonderful, and we are working towards coming to an understanding of how we can move forward together in creating a safe space for one of our city's most vulnerable populations. That being said, we do want to do our due diligence and say that we are concerned that if proper mitigations are not met, that we as a city are really putting a very vulnerable population at risk, and we don't want to see that happen. So we are here to raise that concern and to say that we are waiting to see whether or not this will indeed be a threat or we will be able to work together to achieve proper mitigations. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Javier Flores. I'm with the Labor Local 261, and I'm here to support the project of 1028 Market Street. I believe this project will good for the neighborhood and also for community. Possible, some of our members will benefit from the project. This project will create economic opportunity across many sectors, especially for our members, from the community, resident and apprentice, which also, often they got hurt by the project. And this particular project is a win-win situation for any trade, any related with the construction industry. I'd like to touch a little bit about Nevis and Tidewater. Nevis is probably one of the best companies up there to work for. Hired, from all different community residents, apprentices. Just recently got 2000 Safety Award, Excellence in Safety, by accumulating 1 million hours without lost time or incident. That's about 2.5 years without having any incident. And that will tell you a really good opinion about a company like this. We'll take care of members and do the right thing for the community and anybody working for them. So I congratulate Nevis, and we're looking forward to work with the Nevis and Tidewater. I encourage you to vote yes and support this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Flores. Ms. Clark.
Hi, Laura Clark, Grow San Francisco, becoming YIMBY Action. Just so you guys know, going forward, I'll be YIMBY Action. This is an easy one, obviously. I think it's universally appreciated. There's lots of gravy thrown in and extras and community engagement. It's a great project. It's an easy one. But I want to remind you that just building housing is a net good. Just building housing is a public good in this housing shortage that we're experiencing. And not every project is going to be able to offer these kinds of bells and whistles. And as developers have learned that the bar is really high, they've gone through, a lot of work. And the big developers can afford to do this, but the smaller projects can't. Not every project is going to be able to deliver the kind of amazing extras that this one does. And so I hope you remember that even just building housing is good. And so while it's easy to support this one, there are other ones that are going to be more difficult to support, and I hope that they will still, that we're not going to require everybody to have shadow movies, because not everyone can afford shadow movies. These are things that we're going to need to continue saying just building housing is a good thing. Thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Strauss.
Hi, my name is Sonia Traus. I live at 7th and Natoma, so I'm in support of 1028 Market Street. Please certify the final environmental impact report. And also, while I'm here, I'm in support of 13 of the next item also, which adds 2,000 new residential square feet to our city. That's a small project. This is a big project. And they're both great examples of development without displacement, because in both cases, nobody had to be displaced in order for these new things to get built. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hello, Planning Commissioners. My name is Scott Feeney. I am a resident of the Mission. I took time off work to be here today as a volunteer member of the San Francisco Bay Area Renters Federation. People have already said most of the things that I was going to say, I think, so I'll make it brief. I think this is a great project. It's the perfect place to include a lot of new housing, which we need. It's well designed, and I think that this developer really went above and beyond for the community by activating the space temporarily with the hall, which I'm a big fan of. So I urge you to please support 1028 Market moving forward today. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Neil Shaw. I've lived in San Francisco for the last 4 years, and I've known the Tidewater team for about a year. Currently, I'm the co-executive director of a nonprofit concern and also the co-founder of a benefit corporation called Apprenta. And when I look at the type of people in this community, the main things that I observe and interact with are values and action and stakeholder capitalism. And from everybody that you've heard from in this room, from the general contractors to the local business owners to the nonprofit providers, it's clear evidence that Craig, Ilana, Ross, and the rest of the Tidewater team are invested in this community. About a year ago when I joined and was a director at Code Tenderloin along with Del Seymour, I hosted job fairs and organized them with Ilana Lipset. I was involved very ground level with day-to-day activities at the hall. And most importantly, as a workforce development nonprofit and running employment, they gave 5 people that we worked with chances to work there. And not only gave them a chance, they gave them a second chance, a third chance, and a fourth chance. When I was attending these 1028 project updates, I had a lot of questions. I had a lot of questions about how much housing was going to be committed, BMR housing, who they were going to use to build the building. And when I learned that 25 permanent jobs are going to be created, I'm very confident in this team. The other thing I look at when I look at the future of Market Street and the Tenderloin is my concern for the community. And there's no better demonstration of future action than past action. The hall, I think, is an example of innovation. And it's an example of what we want to see in our neighborhoods. And I'm really, really glad to know that 9,000 square feet is going to be dedicated to retail, neighborhoods serving retail, because I know, by knowing Craig, Ilana, and Ross personally, that they're going to invest in giving people opportunities for the long term in this neighborhood. So I strongly support this project. I also think it's an easy approval, and I really look forward to hearing that the committee approves. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw. Next speaker, please.
Hi, Commissioners. My name is John Schwark again, and I live across the street from this project in the Home Skillet building. So many of you, we've been talking a lot about how it's the Hall building, and I want to talk about the other buildings around it in regards to the question about the EIR in terms of neighborhood scale and character and things like that. So I think the developers have done a really good job of trying to fit this, you saw in their presentation of trying to fit just the overall shape in on the corner space in terms of the tall, short rhythm of the neighborhood. That's great, but the former Show Dog building, which is right next door, is going to be permanently short. It's a historic resource, and they've got the development rights from them for their height. And then also the World of Stereos building next to 1066. What you're going to see is a block that goes short, tall, short. And it lets light in on the corners, just like the Temple Banks and the other structures going down Market Street. So it fits really well in that regard, and we're all pretty happy about it. If I had to say anything, I'm a little sad you won't be able to see the Golden Gate Theater walking up Market anymore. I do have, some nostalgia about that beautiful building. But the fact that they're doing a really great outdoor art thing is an asset to our very artistic neighborhood. We have a neighborhood where when you walk through, art is right there in your face, and you can tell that people care and want to keep it an artistic space. And these developers, I've not even specifically trying to go, I've run into at the Hall twice now, part of their art outreach. So I think they've done an excellent job of seeing what people in the neighborhood had wanted and coming up with a great thing to enhance that aspect of our neighborhood. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Alexander Goldman. I am the Community Organizing and Planning Manager at the Tenderloin Neighborhood Development Corporation. I'm also on the steering committee of Market Street for the Masses, and I'm here today to express my support for the 1028 Market Street project. Just briefly, because I know you've heard a lot of the great points, we are extremely enthusiastic about the prospect of an acquisition fund. It's something that activists in the neighborhood have been working towards for 4 or 5 years. It's something that a group of organizations in the Tenderloin have all prioritized through our anti-displacement process, and it's increasingly important to look at alternative ways of securing affordable housing in the next 4 years when we might see some issues with public funding on that front. I also understand that the city is open to this prospect and willing to work with us on finding ways to secure private funding for affordable housing or to support our efforts on that. So we're really enthusiastic about this prospect. We're really appreciative of Tidewater for their willingness to continue to be a partner with us towards this goal. They're not just giving money and leaving, they're continuing to engage with us, and we really value that. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Goldman. Next speaker, please. And if there's anybody else who'd like to speak on this item, please line up against the screen wall.
Hello, my name is Richard Lewis Perry, and I've known Craig and Scott and the Tidewater Company since they came out here. I guess I don't know years ago, and I know them personally, and I know them through business as well. The rebel in me feels like saying, I am against this. Everybody here is for it, but but I can't. I really can't. Now that I got your attention. I used to, I came out here in California with flowers in my hair to San Francisco. And I'm an artist, I'm a fine artist, and my studio is over in the Oddfellows building on 7th and Market Street. And I've been there for a score and two, almost 23 years now. So I've seen a lot of things change in the neighborhood. I used to go and play pool at the Hollywood Billiards, as well as Palace Billiards, which is across the street. Then the BART came in and destroyed the whole neighborhood, destroyed everything. But in addition to being an artist and in the Oddfellows building, I'm also the chairman of the executive committee for the owners of the Oddfellows building. So I've seen a lot going on over there, and I often told people in the past that if they wanted to come to my studio, I'm over on the edge of the wino country in the Urine District, right? But I have to say that this project is a real positive step in clearing up that kind of image. and improving the MIDMA, which I refer to the MIDMA as the section from 5th Street to 9th Street. And it will definitely add to the ambience and of the street, of the area, as well as the economic growth and impact. What else can I say except for, so when you approve this project, I'd just like to tell you that I'm known for painting the history of the city. I've been written up about that. And I did a painting of the Hollywood Billiards. So even though the building might be gone, it'd still be memorialized in my painting, so we still have that to look at. And this is all due to their interest in the arts. They found me and they've asked me to use my skills and my talents. So as far as the individuals of the Tidewater, they have a real definite concern for the people in Midma and the Tenderloin. They are very good people as well. They take a personal interest in the community and the people that live in it. I strongly suggest and request that you approve this project. These are good guys. The project is a viable and a very good one, and it'll add to the impact of the community. I've seen a lot happen over there, and little by little, this is going to be another step in the right direction. And if I want to, I can always see Craig over in a sleeping bag in front of the Tidewater. In front of Hollywood Billiards, so he's always available to me. All right, thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Perry. Is there any additional public comment on items 11 or 12? Seeing none, we'll close public comment. Thank you for the testimony and open it up to commissioner comments. Commissioner Richards.
It's interesting, I guess. I made a comment before. I might come back from New Zealand after hearing this today. This is the second time where I've actually sat through a project and was kind of like gushing about it. Airtal had one, I believe it was later last year. This project is good on every level. There is absolutely nothing I can see as to why it should not be approved. When I met with Craig and Andrew Junius last Tuesday, I really didn't understand the story behind the story. Developers are developers, and some of them are, give back to the community, et cetera. And I kind of got a flavor for what, Craig had done for the neighborhood with the hall and some of the things that the partners that they did. They showed me that screenshot with all the logos of all the businesses or all the nonprofits that they worked with. But when I actually sit here today and hear what he did, it's like, wow, it's like 10 times deeper than I even imagined. So I think somebody said value in action. You put your values to action, especially when that individual said that you went out to the people in front who were dealing drugs and you tried to offer them a job or get them help for a job. I thought that was remarkable. A lot of people would just kind of, call the police and get them out of there. That's amazing. You work with the police, amazing. Stakeholder capital, invested in the community, union labor, everything is just absolutely right for this project. And I'll let another commissioner, somebody behind me, make the motions for approval and let them talk.
Thank you. Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you very much. I'm also supportive of this project. I'm highly thankful to everyone who came out for public comment. It's really good, often with a project like this, to one, see solidarity, and other times to see a little bit of the story behind the story, as Commissioner Richards pointed to. I'd be happy to make some motions to move this project. But before I do that, it seems we're going to take the action on the final EIR first, and then on the project?
Yeah, separate actions on item 11 and then items 12A through D.
Okay, so I'll just make a quick comment and then I'll move on the final EIR first, and then maybe we can come back around to the project because I have a couple comments there. So on the final EIR, I think we've seen the draft, believe it's adequate under CEQA, and the only thing I would say is that there was a lot of space spent in both the EIR itself and also the response to comments from the EIR on the preservation of sort of the cultural assets in this district, even though this building itself doesn't really maintain integrity and it's not physically subject to sort of maybe the historic registry because of the changes that have occurred in the building over time. I would hope that the interpretive program, which was not detailed in the EIR and didn't need to be, will sufficiently provide some of the feeling and association of this cultural district for this area. So I would hope that staff, actually I would love to see a report back when that interpretive program is created, just to see, what are some of the elements that make a proper interpretive program for a mitigation of that sort. I think that this will be a really great example for the future because there were a lot of issues around that area for this particular project. So I'll move to certify the final EIR.
Second.
Commissioner Koppel.
Thanks again to staff and the public for the work on the environmental impact report. This project has been going on for quite some time, and the longer it's been in the works, the more of a compliment I'm going to give to Craig and Ross for doing what they have done with the space. In San Francisco, we like to keep things local here in this small town, and I think Craig and Ross did a really fine job of supporting the local nonprofits, reusing the space to employ local family-owned restaurant businesses, incorporating local public art, and the use of local construction companies and local residents on the job. If you look closer in the packet, they're anticipating hiring 68 San Francisco residents to work on this project. So that's going to be a lot of employment opportunities for San Francisco residents. Definitely going to be in support of the project.
Okay. Commissioner Moore.
Strong support of the project. Also kudos to the environmental team. Reading through the response to comments, very thorough. All of the questions I at least asked, which were numerous, were all very well answered. And I think the project is as clear as it could be, given that we are mostly bombarded with things which we don't quite know how to field through these meetings. I think this is an exception, and not to talk about the story which comes with it, which is exemplary and wonderful.
Yeah. I just want to echo my fellow commissioner comments. We heard a little bit about the kind of affordable housing and potential acquisition fund. It's not necessarily in our purview that we're approving that, but I just wanted to ask a question on just how that may be administered in the future, because we've talked a lot about that here and potentially, small sites acquisition, and we think it's important to keeping people in their neighborhoods. So if you can just kind of talk a little bit about that and who may administer that and how it may work, it would be helpful.
Yes, so Craig Young with the project sponsor. So the fiscal agent is going to be Larkin Street Youth Services, so they're going to be the primary group to house the operation, if you will. And the basic idea is to create a partnership to try to come up with a way to create and preserve more affordable housing in the community with a focus on neighborhood serving nonprofit as well. So the specifics of the plan today are sort of yet to be determined, but I think the importance of the commitment is that it's ongoing. So it's a commitment to actually spending time and bring our expertise to the table alongside a lot of the folks that think about these things every day. And so, the idea here is to take a new, maybe more innovative approach to partnering with the community on an ongoing basis and moving away from a static point in time, zero-sum negotiation. That's the idea.
Great, thank you. I just also want to point out, I appreciate your kind of commitment to Market Street as a retail corridor. Obviously, it's an extremely important corridor for us, and how you've kind of programmed out the retail on the ground floor. I mean, obviously, you've proven yourself with the hall, so we look forward to that activation on the ground floor. But I'm fully supportive. Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you very much. So we already have the motion on the floor for the final EIR. I'll just make some quick comments, I think, about the project itself, maybe make a motion there as well. So on the design, I think this is something where the staff can continue to work. 1020, this project, fully supportive of the addition of the housing, of the essentially the topography of how it's going to shift Market Street, but it's starting to look a little wall-like for lack of a better term. And I think that there's probably some work that could be done on the design, either through the facade or of the building itself, or through the public art requirement. We're going to hear that item next, but the design for the public art is sort of reminiscent of a marquee, kind of. And I think that if there were a little bit more work done on the scale horizontally or the scope of that piece, that might do a lot to break up the design without having to do anything physically to the building. So I would ask that staff really work with the project sponsor on the design, either through changes to the building itself, cornice or facade work, or in changing the orientation or design of the public art piece, which we'll hear next, to sort of elevate the design a little bit and break up some of that, break up some of the facade that's building up along that portion of Market Street.
I just want to clarify, Commissioner
Yes.
Johnson, the public art component is part of what we're hearing now,
did we
too. So if you
already
have
hear
questions
12E?
on it, yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay, fantastic. I thought we were hearing 12E next. Okay. So I guess then maybe I might ask the artist and or the project sponsor.
Question first.
What? Like if you've got a question, sure.
No, I was just wondering, aren't we first calling the question and then moving on? Because there is a motion on the
We do.
table.
We'll have to approve them sequentially.
Sequentially.
E and then, item 11 and then items 12A through E.
Right.
There's a motion for item 11, but we can wait and call that
Oh, you're
when
saying
there's
call
a
the
motion
question on
also
the
for.
Just
for
get that over with, then we can move on, and we know.
Well, let me finish my statement and then we can do that. Okay. All right. So I think I've asked my question. I guess we can call a question on that and then go back to the sort of design issue. I don't think it's a game stopper for making a motion today, but I think it's important. So why don't we take a pause on that?
Do you want to call item 11, Jonas?
Yes, please, then, Commissioners. There's a motion that has been seconded to certify the final environmental impact report. On that motion, Commissioner Fong?
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson?
Aye.
Commissioner Koppel?
Aye.
Commissioner Melgar?
Aye.
Commissioner Moore?
Aye.
Commissioner Richards?
Aye.
And Commission President Hillis?
Aye.
So moved, Commissioners. That motion passes unanimously 7-0.
Okay, and there are further comments and questions on item 12. Commissioner Moore.
I wanted to pick up on what Commissioner Johnson said. I appreciated her asking some questions about the architecture of the building. I spent an extended time yesterday with Mr. Forgan, the architect, and I had a very interesting discussion with him. We're just posing questions and going through some ideas of how he created the ideas about the building, the facade, the different orientations of the building. Was so thoughtful, and he himself left it kind of open that there is additional work to be done. I kind of don't want to interfere because your recommendation to have him work with staff a little bit more, I think from my perspective, was fully answered. It's a complicated building. It is always difficult when you're in a historic district. You need to find like commonality in the particular Market Street facade expression, but you also need to kind of move it to where it is workable relative to its use, including the units that are basically the primary use of the building on the upper floors. I'm comfortable to support the building as it is proposed, with the caveat that there would be some additional tweaking and development of particular aspects of the fenestration and facade as he goes on, because when this building moves from the very big ideas which we're looking at today into design development and construction drawings, that's when I think those questions should be further vetted with people in the department.
I think we are saying the same thing. All right.
I think we are.
I think,
Thank you.
all right.
Commissioner Johnson.
All right, thank you. I think I agree with Commissioner Moore. I think we're saying the same thing. I think the message has been given. And so I will make a motion to approve items 12A, B, C, D, and E.
Second.
Just for clarity, Commissioners, you'll be adopting findings for 12A, approving the determination of compliance with conditions for 12B, as well as 12C for the conditional use authorization. The zoning administrator will be reviewing 12D, and 12E was just an informational presentation.
Oh, so not D and E. Sorry.
So A through
12A through C.
A through C, yes.
Shall I call that question,
Please.
Commissioners? On that motion, then, to adopt finding and approve with conditions items 12A through C, Commissioner Fong?
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson?
Aye.
Commissioner Koppel?
Aye.
Commissioner Melgar?
Aye.
Commissioner Moore?
Aye.
Commissioner Richards?
Aye.
And Commission President Hillis?
Aye.
So moved, Commissioners. That motion passes unanimously 7-0. Zoning Administrator, what say you?
Closed public hearing, inclined to grant the requested variance.
Thank you.
Congratulations. And I think the commission will take a 45-minute break, so we'll be back here around 3:35.